Welcome to Witch Talks, the series for spiritual seekers, witches, and enlightened souls. I'm Hannah the Suburban Witch, professional tarot reader, astrologer, and witch, and I hope you're ready to get up close and personal with your favourite witches. Hello, it's so good to have you here with me today as we talk about tips for when tarot gets tricky. Because trust me, I get it. It gets tricky sometimes, and I am here to hold your hand and guide you through that. So let's do this together. So whether you are totally new to the tarot or whether you've been reading the tarot for ages, if you're finding some element of the tarot to be tricky, you are in the right place. Now, if you know somebody who is finding the tarot a little bit tricky, send this to them. Share this with them. They might need this just as much as you do. So, knowing how to read the tarot is not something that happens overnight. Like, sure, you can learn the basics pretty quickly, but sooner or later, something will trip you up. And that's what I'm here for. So I recently reached out to students of my class. I have a class called How to Read Tarot. It is also an added bonus class that you get if you sign up for my Psychic Divination course, which is opening on November 1st for the final live round of that course. And you get access to that class, or if you just want the tarot and you don't care about all the other divination styles or psychic development, you can just take the tarot class by itself. But I asked them what was still feeling tricky in their tarot reading journey. And the answers came in hot and fast in our private Facebook group. And knowing that they're not alone, I resolved to answer these questions via a public podcast episode to help the most amount of people possible. Because if they're feeling it, then you're probably feeling it too, and so are other people. But why does the tarot have to feel tricky? Why can't it be easy? Well, before I answer that particular concern, let's quickly address the question behind this question, because I get this question a lot. People drop into my DMs, people book readings with me, people book mentorships with me, and they're like, I've been doing this for a year. Why am I still getting tripped up? And the assumption behind this is that once you've learned how to read tarot and you understand the basics, that you should just get it. Always, every time, right? I've taken all the classes. I've done my daily draw. Why isn't it easy yet? Well, there are a lot of reasons why, but here are the top 3 in my experience. Numero uno, number 1. Perhaps the deck that you're using isn't the best one for you personally. I recently gave one of my mentorship clients the task of sending me a daily draw, but they had to switch out their deck for a new one every single week. Well, lo and behold, on week 5 or 6, we came across a deck that just clicked, and my mentee connected with the cards in a way and with a depth I had never seen them reach before. And it's been one level up after another for them since that moment. Now, you might not have a collection of tarot cards yet. You may not want them, but there is a possibility that another deck might work better for you. So definitely check it out. Try something different. Switch it up. See if that helps. Number 2, perhaps you've not had enough practice outside of your comfort zone. The tarot hates the comfort zone. I'm telling you right now. The whole purpose of the tarot is to show you what's beyond your current vision and to guide you to a more aligned life. It wants you to take action outside of your normal. If you want to stay right where you are, why the hell would you bother with the tarot? It is a change maker. So instead of sitting in your PJs and pulling another card for yourself, why not hit up some tarot Facebook groups or subreddits and offer to read for strangers for free in exchange for feedback? Call a few friends and see if they'll let you do a reading for them. Doing things like this gives you exposure to not only a broader range of questions, but a broader range of responses and energies than you can find alone in your bedroom. And this will help you exponentially in the long run with your tarot journey. In fact, it is what I recommend to anyone who is wanting to up level or considering doing tarot professionally at some point. You gotta get out of your comfort zone. You gotta read for the general public, for strangers, and for more than just yourself. Now, the third reason that sometimes comes up as to why tarot can feel really tricky, and that's just life is simply too much right now. Sometimes life gets in the way. Maybe you're sick, maybe you're grieving, stressed out, overwhelmed, drowning in parenting woes, dealing with financial hardship, or even just really ungrounded. There's a lot of shit going on in the world, collectively, and sometimes personally on top of that. It can be super tricky to learn or to master a new skill, like how to read the tarot cards, under difficult conditions, not to mention finding the time amidst chaos to practice this skill. So it is more than okay to give yourself some grace and put your tarot expectations on a mini hiatus whilst you sort yourself out. Yes, the tarot can help you through tough times, but sometimes you simply need a break to get your feet under you first, and that is a-okay, baby. You have my permission. So now, I'm trying to record. So now, for the specific questions around what can be feeling tricky with the tarot. So as I go through these, if there is a question that you have which hasn't been answered, feel free to let me know. Send me a DM or an email. Perhaps I'll add it to an episode as a Hana Help Me question, or I'll answer it over on my YouTube channel where there's an entire tarot playlist with tarot FAQs and all sorts of good stuff to explore whilst you're learning. Alright folks, what to do when the tarot gets tricky. I have 5 tips for you. Number 1, so tricky tarot tip number 1, say fuck off to fear. So this is what one of my students said when I asked them what was feeling tricky. They responded, fear, not of the cards or what I might read, but I fear doing it wrong, doing a poor reading for someone else, being completely off base on a reading. It's really stopping me from branching out and practicing. That was from Lolo. Now, as a recovering perfectionist myself with religious trauma, boy, do I understand this fear. And guess what? It is a perfectly rational fear to have. Of course you want to do a good job. Of course you want to do things right. Of course you don't want to give someone the wrong advice. And guess what? You will never avoid that. No, seriously, and this is not meant to make you more scared about it at all. This is to help you claim those fears and see them as a rite of passage. Let me tell you a little story. About 8 years ago, I was visiting a good friend of mine who was heavily pregnant with their second baby. She was struggling and was so worried about needing to be induced for going past her due date and was desperate to avoid that. So she asked me if I would pull a card for her on when the baby would come. At that time, she was around 35 weeks pregnant. Now, these days, I have an ethical guideline around readings on pregnancies, especially professionally. But back then, I wasn't yet reading for money, and I figured it would be an interesting way to check my timing prediction accuracy. I was right in that part at least, because I completely fucked it up, and the universe let me know about it almost immediately. So I pulled a card for her using my Shadowscapes deck, and even though it was 8 years ago, I remember this card clear as day. It was the 9 of Swords. Now, before reading on, I want you to have a think about how you might read this card for timing. Okay? Now, in the Shadowscapes card, we have this angelic figure holding a sword with wings on their back, and they're looking up at the sky. There's like this swirling vortex of clouds and crows. And I saw this card intuitively as the figure in the card is waiting patiently, but there's still a ways to go. And I told her I didn't get the feeling she'd need to be induced, but that she should be patient as the baby knew when the time was right. She pushed me for more information, and since the number 9 was really sticking out to me, I said she'd likely be closer to her due date, which would be in 4 weeks' time, which would bring it closer to that 9-month timeline. Imagine my surprise when her baby arrived that freaking night. I felt like an idiot. I felt like the worst tarot reader in the world. I felt like I could never live this down, even if she was the only person who knew about this horrible blunder of mine. Trust me, I mean, she's not thinking about that at all. She's bloody having her baby, right? She's in newborn baby town. So, I was in my feels. I went to my mentor, CB, and feeling very sorry for myself, admitted that I was obviously a terrible tarot reader and I had no clue why I got it so wrong. This was his advice. Hannah, it's a swords card. They're always fast. How could you miss that? And I was like, oh my God, don't remind me. It's so obvious to me now. And then CB said, plus 9 of swords often refers to the nighttime. The answer should have been that the baby will arrive in the evening and very soon. And I'm in my feels still going, oh, the shame, the indignity. That's a Thomas the Tank Engine funny in-joke for all my parents out there. But then he said something that blew me away. He said, but Hannah, can you imagine if you told her that? If you told her your baby's going to arrive in the evening very soon, how would she have taken that news? And me knowing her was like, she would have freaked out, and it would have been a very stressful concept for her to accept. And he replied, trust that the universe needed her to be surprised by this, and that telling her to be patient was exactly what she needed to hear in that moment. Cue a huge sigh of relief and a very poignant lesson for me at the same time. So back to the original question and being afraid of getting it wrong. Yep, you will get it wrong, and sometimes that is exactly what's supposed to happen. And guess what? I now know whenever that 9 of swords pops out for a timing card that it will be fast and likely in the evening. I can tell you right now that is stuck in my brain forever. The best way we learn is by making mistakes. I say it all the time. And guess what else I know? That sometimes the client needs to hear something else aside from accuracy. So this takes us to tricky tarot tip number 2. Your job is not to memorize. So one of my other students, when asked what is feeling tricky for you, said remembering all the meanings and learning to trust my interpretation around, with, in conjunction with those meanings. And this was Abby. And you know what? It can certainly feel like the goal of a tarot reader is to know the meanings of every single card. And whilst it can be helpful to have a good memory, it is certainly not the only way to read the cards, nor is it the best method to rely on. In the beginning, it can help to refer to guidebooks and cheat sheets and the like. I even provide a keyword cheat sheet to students of the tarot class. But this can also trip you up once you start doing multi-card readings. For example, if you have memorized that the 8 of Swords means restriction, and the 5 of Pentacles means financial hardship, and the Ace of Pentacles is a new job, then you might read all 3 together as a restriction in funds will force you to look for a new job. And that might very well be a good reading. But what if those cards, those same cards, came up in response to a question about, what is my spiritual gift? Is your querence, and the word querent just means the person you're reading for, your client, is your querent's spiritual gift going to be in restricting funds, financial hardship, and looking for jobs? No, the fuck it isn't. And that would be a terrible reading. So instead of memorizing, the tip you need to take to heart is say what you see. If you have a tarot deck with you, or if you know what these cards look like, or if you can Google them, just pull up an image of the Eight of Swords, the Five of Pentacles, and the Ace of Pentacles. Just going off the Rider-Waite-Smith version for this example. So if we're looking at these cards, and the question is, what is my spiritual gift? And we're saying what we see. In the first card, the Eight of Swords, we see a woman who is blinded and bound, surrounded by swords in a harsh environment, on the shore, away from home. It looks cold, barren, and ruthless. She is restricted, and those swords are keeping her in place. You can then extrapolate from here that swords are of the air element, thoughts, communication, ideas, the mind. And in this case, you might say they refer to mental restrictions, limiting beliefs, and feeling stuck. In the second card, which was our Five of Pentacles, we see two people out in the cold. Another harsh environment, yet again restricted, but this time by disability and poverty. There is a church in the background, and yet they have not sought sanctuary yet. In our final card, the Ace of Pentacles, we see a hand holding a pentacle or coin aloft above a walled garden. The mountain in the background could be the mountain from the first card, and the winter snows have all melted away. It could be spring or even summer. The pathway from the mountains has led straight to the garden. So this person's spiritual gift is in helping people to find the limiting beliefs that are keeping them stuck in poverty or pain and guiding them on their unique pathway towards safety and beauty in their life. With 2 out of 3 cards being Pentacles cards, this person leans heavily into the practical steps to help people, looking at finances, health, job, resources, rather than just the metaphysical. And given the blindfold in the Eight of Swords and the physical restrictions shown in the cards, their insight will come through not as clairvoyance or clairsentience, but perhaps as claircognizance or clairaudience. Do you see how we got super nuanced without relying on rote memorization of the card meanings? So give it a go and say what you see. Now, tricky tarot tip number 3 is have fun and be playful. So when I asked what's making tarot feel tricky for you, I got a response from Amy which said, just relaxing and enjoying myself. I can get too precious and cerebral with things when I'm anxious, which is often. So I know we're supposed to be super serious witches who are as reverent as priests and always solemn when delivering the messages of the cards. All right, let's play a little imagination game. Imagine you're at the grocery store and the power cuts out right before you're about to pay. Scenario 1, you say, I guess it's free then, lol, like the giant dad joke that you are, and the cashier doesn't even smile. They look at your groceries like their life depends on you not escaping with them, sans payment. Sir, madam, you will have to pay for them, and I will need to ring them up all again once the power is up and running. Please be patient, we'll have this sorted shortly. All whilst looking over their shoulder to make sure their manager isn't breathing down their neck and never making eye contact with you. Or scenario 2, where the cashier says, oh, that's bad timing, hey. And you say, I guess it's free then. To which they reply, if I had things my way, it totally would be. Also, you don't have to wait around. You're welcome to continue with anything else you need to get done. We'll ring it all up once the power's back on, ready for you to pay and collect whenever convenient. One holds a very serious, hard energy. The other holds a fun, light-hearted one. Which one is going to get more complaints? Who is having more fun? Now imagine that the customer is your intuition trying to have a conversation with you. I know this is a weird analogy. I'm a weird person, just roll with it. But basically, if you're hard, closed, and serious, it is so much harder to hear what someone's trying to tell you. If you're playful and open, you become a hell of a lot more receptive. Students of my psychic divination course know that the number one rule I give them in the very first module is to have fun. If you are not having fun, what is even the point? So if you find yourself being a serious Sally, then there are two things that I suggest you do. Number one, go and buy a ridiculous tarot deck. And I mean totally ridiculous, like a silly style of tarot deck. One that makes you laugh. Ones that I can suggest are perhaps the Cosmic CUNT tarot deck, or the Disney Villains tarot deck, or I find the Hieronymus Bosch tarot deck completely ridiculous, but it is more of a serious art historian type of ridiculous. But it has butt trumpets on the cards, like seriously. So that is number one. Like, there are cat tarots, there are weed tarots, there is a zombie tarot, like you can find anything. My YouTube channel has a bunch of unboxing videos that you can flick through to see if any of them take your fancy as well. And the second thing I'm going to suggest you do is that you do a reading for your pet or a stuffed toy. So if you're reading for your pet, it can be fun to try and get them to actually pick a card. So I like to lay mine out and make my cat sniff them, because she likes to just sniff everything. And whichever one her nose touches, that's her card. The ridiculousness of reading for a pet or a stuffed toy should hopefully snap you out of being too in your head about something, so you can just return to having fun with the cards. I'm also a big proponent of reading after a few drinks when I'm with friends. It's lighthearted and can be a hell of a party if you let it. Alright, tricky tarot tip number 4 is to assign characters to court cards. So it was quite funny when I asked the question, what's making the tarot feel tricky for you? Because Chantal, who long-time listeners of the podcast would know as Chantoodles, responded just one word: pages. The court cards. Like, I get it. Pages. A very frequent tricky spot, since who the hell knows what a page is these days? So firstly, I have a book recommendation if you're finding you're getting tripped up on the court cards. And that is Tarot Court Cards for Beginners by Lisa Robertson. I found that really helpful when I was starting out. It's probably the best book on understanding the court cards that I've read. She does a very good job of it. Secondly, court cards are not only people in your life. There are so many blogs, graphics and the like floating around the internet that say court cards are people. But this is such a closed and restricted way to read the energy of the court cards. So yes, they can be, but that doesn't mean they are. I recommend you assign characters to your court cards. Pull them out and choose either movie or book characters that align with their vibe, or you can use people in your life as well. For example, the King of Pentacles, for me, is either my husband or Mr. Darcy from Pride and Prejudice. The Queen of Cups is Cersei Lannister from Game of Thrones, if I want a more negative vibe for it, or Mary Poppins for a positive spin. Have fun with it. And then when you come across the Page of Swords, instead of trying to connect to some ancient concept or figure out if you know a childlike person this could be referring to, you can simply pretend the card is Matilda from Matilda and ask yourself, how would Matilda answer this question? What would Matilda do in this situation? And then we get to our final tricky tarot tip for today. And this is tip number 5. Step into the cards. So Glasgavlin said, I always want to know what to do, what action to take in just about any situation. Sometimes that's not clear, as some cards aren't actionable. And oh my god, I adore asking the cards what to do in a situation. And whilst I'm at the stage in my journey where this is very easy for me, I understand it's not for everyone. So I'm going to share one of my favorite tips, which is step into the cards. So ask your question. Let's do another example. What can I do to support my friend through her divorce? Let's say the Seven of Wands pops out. What action step is that suggesting to you? If you're unfamiliar with the card, it is a man on we presume a hill. He's holding a stick and there are other sticks pointing up at him. So let's imagine we're stepping into the card and we sidle up to the dude with the big stick. If you were to ask him what he's doing, he would likely say, "What does that look like I'm doing?" Maybe you ask him, "Why are you wearing two different shoes?" Because if you haven't noticed, that's one of my favourite tidbits in that card. He'd probably say, "Do I look like I care? I have bigger fish to fry." Then you ask, "What do you want me to do?" He'd probably say, "Pick up a damn stick and help me fight." It's a very combative card. Well, now you have your answer. To support your friend, you can literally jump into the fray and help her fight. She might feel like the odds are stacked against her and she's totally unprepared. But with you by her side, those odds begin to look a bit better and she can suddenly breathe easier too. Now, if you have trouble stepping into the cards, you can always come up with all the possible action steps you could take for a scenario and then pull a card for each option. So let's say you want advice on what to do on the weekend. Think of your current options, which might be relax, read a book, stay in, meal prep, go to the gym, hit the town, go on a date, etc., etc. The world is your oyster. And you can pull a card for each option. And they're usually pretty clear as to which one is the best option. Maybe you pull the Tower for staying in and the Knight of Cups for hitting the town. That's a pretty clear hint to leave the house. So there you have it. 5 tarot tips plus a little extra to help you when the tarot feels tricky. If there's anything I've missed, please let me know. Also, I'm a sucker for compliments. If this helped you, I would love to know about it, especially if it's allowed you to unstick yourself in your own tarot journey. I'm so here for it. Now, if you want to uplevel your tarot practice, I have a private membership group, the Suburban Witches Society, and you can use that like a group mentorship where you pick my brain on our monthly group calls or anytime in our thriving group chat. Or if you're serious about your tarot journey, you can book in with me for a 3-month mentorship intensive, which is super duper fun. Either way, I would love to work with you and get you reading those cards in a way that feels fun and fluid and easy. Happy taroting, and I will see you all next week where I'm going to be chatting with someone about astrology for wealth enhancement. So you definitely want to check that one out. Have a wonderful day wherever you are in the world today, and I'll chat with you next time.